love of country in their hearts, common sense in their brains, and working class in their veins. They're winning back America, one conversation at a time. This is Red, Right, and Real with Bella Dangelo and A.K. Kamara.
Hello, welcome to Red, Right, and Real, AK and Bella. We have got a great show lined up. We're going to, how should we, I've been out, man on the street stories all day long in Subway, McDonald's. Can't find a single person that wants to vote for Harris. Plenty of people, when you tell them that we're going to talk about the debate, nobody actually can call it a debate. I think that we can call it just a biased performance of somebody listening to a microphone in their ear, telling them what to say and not to say.
Yeah.
I mean, but I got to finally meet you in person. We went to, it was a debate party watching Tuesday night. I gotta give you a lot of credit. I mean, you signed on to do this with me. And I'm, and I didn't even get to do hair and makeup today. I've been out on the road, driving around, working, being a working girl. But I mean, I really appreciate that you, you put some preconceived notions. I mean, you did think that you were working with an elderly, aged midget in decline of her career, and you signed on with me. And then, to your surprise, I wasn't as elderly and aged as you thought that I was. And I turned out to not even be a midget. And then on top of it, last week you called me and you were like, oh my God, you actually had a following. You actually had like big name guests. So I kind of was really more than what you kind of thought you originally signed up for, this elderly, aged, in decline, washed up midget podcaster.
Now, to be fair, I had this like intuitive connection. Like I had heard your name before, but you and I, like you said, we never met in person. Welcome everyone to the stream, to the show. Make sure that you click that like button. Make sure that you share this stream. Share it with your friends and family. If you're watching this on Facebook, if you're watching this on YouTube, or even on Rumble, which we're trying, and it looks like our Rumble stream is up. Make sure that you hit that share button, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We want to try and get at least 10 people subscribed to our YouTube. It's very lonely over there, but this will help us grow kind of long term. But to go back to your point, Bella, yes, when I met you, I thought you were maybe like 5'1", 5'2". I didn't expect
you all got hop hands. My mama was 5'1", and she got very pissed if you left out that 1 inch. Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I thought that you were relatively shorter than, and so when I saw you and I gave you a hug, and like you said earlier, I said yes to doing the show with you, not necessarily knowing your entire body of work. I had heard your name. I had seen people share your streams before, but when I was kind of going back as I was setting up this podcast, so we're everywhere. So again, for those of you that would rather not watch live, or you can't watch live and you'd rather listen to just it in audio form, you can go to whatever your favorite podcast streaming platform is, and you're going to find us there. So just, again, search for Red, Right, and Real with Bella and AK, and you're going to be able to find us wherever podcasts are. But yeah, I went out on a limb, and thankfully, you're everything that I hope for and so much more. So this is episode 6.
Yes, it is.
Today we're gonna break down, really go back over the presidential debate, and really, for those of you that have never watched this show, what we want to do is try and bring a real perspective to politics, right? Like, obviously, Bella and I are right wingers. Obviously, we try and be honest. And so that's where that realness comes. But more than anything, like, we're red-blooded Americans, so we love this country. And so that's what we want to try and bring for those of you that, if this is the first time you're hearing the sound of my voice or seeing my video, seeing my face, seeing Bella's face. And that's what we hope to be able to do. So that's what we're going to do today, Bella, with technology holding up, which so far it seems like it's holding up well. We're going to try and play a bunch of clips throughout the debate, and just kind of break it down and kind of interject with things that you've talked to people, man on the street, things that I've heard, things that I've seen as I've just kind of been out and about how this debate actually went down.
Sure. First, I want to give a little bit of woman on the street. So, one of the things that I do as me, and Jay Dugan, who's a big supporter of this show, Jay Dugan's Facebook page is Rocks and Cows, which he said that we can stream live on there. But he actually saw me in action when he first met me in person. He was at a gas station, and he literally, I heard in the back, like, is that really Bella D'Angelo? Because I was standing pumping my gas, and there's a security guy from the Mall of America next to me. And I just, was back then it was the 2020 election. But today I walked into Subway and I was getting my sandwich made, and I'd just been listening. There's been such a wide digesting of whatever the hell we watched Kamala Harris attempt to try and get us to understand that she's trying to do. From this morning, it was she's starting to rise in the polls again, which I couldn't believe. And then later in the afternoon, I started hearing about, because of her smarminess and inability to answer a question, they were doing man on the street talks from Fox News. And a lot of people that were saying, there was one particular survey where they talked to 10 different people, and 6 of them were voting Trump. 1 was undecided, and 3 were for Kamala. So I walked into the Subway to get my sandwich this morning down in southern Minnesota, and asked, and the 2 girls behind the counter, the one said, well, I'm not going to vote. It was interesting because she didn't want her social security number traced. And so,
Interesting.
yeah, I know. She said it was about a government watch thing. And so I said, I get it. I said, but if you were going to vote, and she said, oh, Trump all day long. And then the other gal said Trump. And she said, not only that, but my entire family is voting Trump. So I shared some of the sentiment that I'd been hearing about the fact that she's allegedly soaring or inching up in the polls in the swing states, and the sentiment heard throughout the day. And the girl said, I don't see it. She said, my entire family and everybody I know is voting Trump. And I will bring this to you. I can't find anybody that is telling me that they want to vote for Kamala Harris as I go about my adventures from McDonald's to Subway to the gas station, including the automotive repair shop today that I garnered some new business with. So it's just I think that there is, like you and I have talked about, there's a little bit of another honeymoon phase that's kicked in a little bit. The Taylor Swifty endorsement, when, I don't know who said it was the biggest celebrity endorsement. Well, I'm sorry, but I think Elvis endorsed Nixon. I think that Elvis wore a bigger shoe than little Taylor Swift. But anyways, let's and I'm not going to roll ahead like I did last week. There are a few comments here. I just want to give a shout out to Christopher Guy. Christopher has been a long time listener from when I used to be sitting in my pickup truck in the Subway parking lot, fending off roughnecks trying to join the show with their various different comments. Also, Mark Przbilski, he is a new listener here in Minneapolis. And also Ashley Peterson is a new listener and fan of the show. We also have Rick and Kim Fox, who I got to sit with. Let me just say this. It was really cool. Okay, so first of all, Walter Hudson, former co-host, was there giving some opening lines at the debate watch party, which he gave some inspiration as to what can happen in November with sending Timmy walking back to Minnesota, being defeated by Donald J. Trump, and then you, AK, finally meeting you in person, the new co-host, and being able to finally meet you in person. I will say, as I watched the debate, though, I had mixed emotions and feelings, but I had to give it some time. So if you would like to set it up and add, and then we will start playing some of the clips.
Yeah, so I think what we want to try and attempt to do is kind of go through. I have kind of different time marks down so we can kind of talk a little bit more. But, we'll just kind of first start off with, the first opening question, which to me and Bella had this conversation, and I said, I don't think that debates matter like they used to. I think that we get so much exposure to candidates that people really do get a pretty good opportunity to know those that care, that want to pay attention, to know who these candidates are and what they stand for. So I think that in general, what the debates are used as, for the most part, are a way to motivate or demotivate your activists. So if Republicans are feeling defeated based off of President Trump's debate performance, it might encourage more Republicans to not get out and vote. We don't want that. Same goes for Kamala Harris. If people feel that she gave bad answers or she wasn't fulfilling enough, then again, it demotivates. There is a small corridor of people that are independents, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But not to spoil it too much, according to multiple different polls that happened, they were kind of snapshot. President Trump actually won over independents at a higher rate than Kamala Harris did based off of that debate performance. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So yeah, just to kind of get this queued up and what we're going to try and attempt to do, and we're going to see how great it works. We're going to pull up the debate on one side, and then that way we can try and just watch it and then kind of go piece by piece, and we'll see how this bad boy works. So let's get this pulled up here. All right, let's start her off. And this is the first point that we want to be able to talk about.
Okay. Where's their sound? Oh, you're looking for their sound. I thought it was very important that she walk up to him and explain who she was.
Yeah, so you can't hear any sound you're saying on the stream?
I can't. Can you?
Okay. I can hear, but if you can't. This was so great about technology. Is we're seeing if we can hear sound. All right, let's see here. Anyone in the chat, can you tell us whether or not you can hear sound and audio?
Christopher Guy, can you hear the audio from the debate? All else fails, reboot. But I don't think that's the issue. No, they can't hear it.
No sound. Okay. Well, I can hear sound on my end, so this is interesting. Let me. All right, so let's do this while I try and figure this out. The first question that they asked, the opening question, was, do you think that Americans are better off now than they were 4 years ago? So that's the opening question that they gave to Kamala Harris. And basically she goes through this word salad, talks about being working class. She talks about growing up with, single mom, raising 2 children. And she just
is that where she put that? Because I was listening earlier today.
Yeah.
That question being asked about where you're better off. And I literally sat and listened to that. And I thought, now somebody sitting around the table. Now, this is where I think why these polls are having a false bump in the fact, and that's why I believe that I bring the results that I do when I talk to everyday hourly workers, everyday middle class, which I am. And when people give me the resounding response about Trump, is that, this is a canned bullshit little story of hers of trying to relate to us and not answer the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and pressing play again. And again, in the comments, if you guys could say whether or not you hear it, let me know. Can you hear it all, Bill?
I can't.
You still can't?
No, what are you doing different from last week? Because we played the audio. Maybe you don't. Do you want to grab a different clip? I mean, but this is the thing, and I've had I had a conversation. I've had multiple conversations, but one of the things that I think is also going to play into this is that Donald Trump really changed the landscape for campaigning. And so I think that when one of the biggest appeals of Donald was to talk to us like we're real people, talk to us as if we're sitting around a table actually discussing and being able to, yeah, Jeffrey Burgess says, no, we're not hearing it. But being able to be relatable. And people are really sick and tired of this self-bloviating, just running around word salad, however you want, and then just not answering the question. I think that there is the relief that it's not Joe Biden anymore, but we should have planned for if we can't hear the audio.
Yeah. So the problem is I can hear the audio just fine. It just seems that me playing maybe I'm hearing audio that's coming through my stream versus what's going out to the rest of everyone watching. And so that's, I guess, there's no way to
Do you want to
work
grab a
that through.
different clip and see if that, I don't know, or do you want to I don't know what you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. Without trying to figure out why the audio is not sharing on this, I don't know. So the only other thing that I can think of is
Well, since you can hear it, why don't you be Barack Hussein Obama in our ear and just let us know what the next topic is to talk about. Be Barack Obama tonight. Okay. I
be
got the
Barack
earrings.
Obama.
Yeah, I got the earrings like Kamala had in. And so I'm gonna pretend to be Kamala because I don't know what to say next. So what is the next question, Barack?
So that was the first question. Is basically she didn't answer anything about whether or not she thought that the economy was better, and then basically from there she goes on to attack President Trump, and in her response she also uh, basically the next question's asked to President Trump, did he have a response? He explains that she's been terrible for the country, terrible for the economy, and then she gets a rebuttal, and her rebuttal is to go after Donald Trump, talking about Project 2025. Now, what I find so interesting is that using Project 2025 as an attack vector, for whatever reason, has been effective. I've actually, my neighbor, quite literally my neighbor across, if I open up my garage door right now, right across my neighbor directly in front of me, she, I believe, is a Republican. She's in the past supported Republicans. She tells me that she likes my yard sign, but this is Minnesota, and some people don't necessarily want to talk about exactly where they're at. But she asked me, what do I think about Project 2025? And this was like 3 months ago. And I said, it's fantastic. She goes, really? She goes, I've heard a lot of bad things about it. And so I've looked at the different polling, and a lot of people do have this negative perception of what Project 2025 is. And I say that because that's this attack vector. But here's the thing. Trump literally every time when he's asked about it says, it's not my thing. I haven't read it. And he even said on the debate stage, I'm not going to read it. Some people made some things. We have our own thing going on. You can go to Agenda 47 and you can see what President Trump's priorities are. But they tried to use that. And so I thought that was interesting, that I wanted to point out, is that ABC claimed that they were going to be fact checking the candidates live on air.
Now, why in God's name would you even? Okay, real quick, turn on your speaker and play the sound back through your microphone. That's what our listening audience is advising Barack Obama to help
Yeah, I
Bella
mean, we
with the
can
show tonight.
we can try that. The only problem is if I get feedback. So let's try it.
Let's try it. What the heck? We got nothing to lose tonight because I can't hear anything. Okay, so and now Now I can't hear you, AK. Who are you talking to? I can't even hear you. I can't hear you. I'm going to kill somebody in our IT department. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody to kill because we don't have an IT department. AK. No. No. Why don't we reboot and come back into the studio? I don't know what else to do. I can't hear you. And we're about to lose everybody listening because we're no. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. All right. There we are. Back up and running.
Well, I unplugged. Okay. Because it was like once you let it play the audio through your microphone, and yeah, that wasn't working. But I don't know if our stream went down or if people, because it says that we're still live. Let me look real quick here on Facebook. Yeah, it says that we're still live. So yeah, hopefully people can hear me now.
Each week, I think we're going to get all of this stuff ironed out. And we played video just last week. So I don't understand why this one would be any different. You want to try it again real quick now that we're back up?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be honest. If you want to go on like a 5-minute rant, I can try. It's obviously something because I'm playing this video and the audio is not coming. Like I can hear it on my end in my headphone. I can hear it just fine, but it's not playing to the stream. And so I need to figure out why it's not playing to the stream. So if you let's kind of queue up this next thing. So while this first part wasn't working too well, I'm going to try this, which is just sharing actual like information that we have on screen. And so to kind of cue this up, basically during this debate, this, fact checked, quote unquote, was happening. And the fact check was to claim that, President Trump talked about that Supreme Court sent abortion back to the states, overturned Roe v. Wade, and that Kamala has a position that supports basically, killing children. And one of the things that the moderator did, not David Muir, but the Chris, whatever her name is, one of the things she did, she fact checked Trump live and said, well, according to what we have, that's not true. There are no states that currently allow babies that are born to be executed, to be killed. And so I want to pull up this, and it's live babies left to die in Minnesota after failed abortions, report reveals. This is from Alpha News. This is back from July of 2022. And the premise here is that there was state law that was changed. And the state law that was changed as part of the PRO Act was to change what the definition of live births was. This is what the old reading was, saying that a born alive infant as a result of an abortion shall be fully recognized as a human person, right, and accorded immediate protection under the law. And then the second part under subdivision 4, right, is that saying that determining the meaning of any Minnesota during Minnesota statute or any ruling, regulation, or interpretation, various administrative bureaus, and more specifically, it talks about the conduct, right? Any responsible medical personnel that does not take all reasonable measures consistent with good medical practice to preserve the life and health of the born alive infant as required by subdivision 1 may be subject to suspension, revocation. So basically, that's a fancy way of saying that if a baby is born in the state of Minnesota prior to the PRO Act being signed, doctors have to use all reasonable methods to try and revive, resuscitate, or provide care to the baby. Because of the PRO Act, and again, this is, you can see right here, 2022, this is what they changed the language of this specific part of state law to reflect, okay? What they changed is to say that within, well, now it's not working, so we'll see if it pulls back up. But basically what the state law did is it changed to right here, okay? Recognition, so they got rid of the word medical, and then they put care. And as you see, they struck out this part of the language of the law. A born alive, they struck that and they put an infant, and then they struck out as a result of an abortion who is born alive. So the way that it reads is an infant who is born alive shall be fully recognized as a human person. So that's curious because when they took that out, it's not saying as a result of an abortion. It's saying that if you tried to have an abortion and the baby's born alive, they're not including that. They specifically remove that language. So if a woman has an abortion and it does not successfully kill the baby, what this language being struck out, that says that that is no longer considered a human life, okay? And then most importantly, all reasonable measures consistent with good medical practice, including the compilation of appropriate medical records, shall be taken by the responsible medical personnel to, and they struck out the words, preserve the life and health of the born alive infant. Okay, that means that no longer is the doctor required to preserve the life and health of the born alive infant. Instead, care for the infant who is born alive. And what is the definition of care? That doesn't mean life-saving measures. So what that means is that if there is a mother who wants to have an abortion, the abortion does not work. The baby goes to full term, baby's delivered. At that point, if the baby has a lot of problems, a lot of physical, medical problems, the doctor does not have to use life-saving measures based off of this. So this is why it's important to kind of weed through all of this, is that in current state law, this is what Trump is talking about, that if the child is born in this specific case as a result that, and they even applied even further than that, that the doctor does not have to actually use life-saving measures, no longer required. Instead, provide care, which means, don't do anything. You let the baby ease out of life. And I say that, but that's what I wanted to clarify. They fact-checked Trump, fact-checked, and they lied. They said, no state allows this. Literally, this is right now state law in the state of Minnesota. Go for it, Bella.
Well, I've often wondered why, what is where and why what was the necessity to get to the point of infanticide? And I don't understand. And when it gets debated on other programs, and you get these ridiculous people that call in and say, well, do you know the percentages of mothers, just like when Kamala said that a woman was going to be left to bleed out in her vehicle. I mean, the percentage of that situation is so small and so minor. And I want to make this statement that abortion should have been left out of politics it should be between man, woman, and physician, because one of the biggest problems that it causes, it becomes a deciding factor on a vote for many, many women. This line item will cause them to blindly choose the party that supports their belief about the rights of or their view of the choice of life or not. And it just it's infuriated me for years and years and years, ever since I started this, that this got dragged into politics, and that it becomes, I mean, it hurt Scott Jensen in the governor race. It hurts us always, because the minute that we want to try and set boundaries, and Trump was right, give it back to the states, let the states decide. But my viewpoint, my Bella endorsed belief is that I wish it was pulled out of politics and it was left alone, because it is, I mean, I'm pro-life, but anyways, it's just, but why would we think that they would have fact checked him? All right, what's the next one that we're going to discuss?
Yeah, so I guess what's, I think, important to be able to explain, you asked the question, why would they include this? Why would they do this? This is to me probably my biggest frustration with people that maybe, the question, are you pro-choice? Are you pro-abortion? Are you pro-life? Like, these questions, fundamental questions, people don't want to have to think about them. They don't. They would rather push them to the side. And the problem is that it's a question, and I'm very hardcore pro-life, just so you know. But the question, when you say why, I think it's pretty clear, but it brings us to a really dark place. And I think people don't want to deal with that. And the why is because people fundamentally believe that supported this bill, that a woman has the right to decide whether or not she wants to have a child at any point, because it is her body. So it doesn't matter if you're talking about, is the baby 8 months and 6 hours away from being delivered. That's not relevant to people that have this moral position. They truly believe that until that baby has left the body of the woman, and even when it leaves the body of the woman, because that woman has a responsibility, that she should be able to have that split second choice, that if the baby's born with a bunch of physical issues, right? Like the baby is going to have a lot of disabilities or something like that, that the mother should still be able to say, I don't want to have to care for this human being. And so that's what's really at the base of this. When I watched the committee hearings on this bill, that was exactly how they described it. And it was so disingenuous. The DFL, I can't remember the state rep's name, but she said, imagine that your child is born with severe disabilities. And instead of being able to spend, maybe you get a month with that child before they pass away. Maybe you get a few hours with the child. But instead of doing that, you're robbed of that, because they're going to try and resuscitate and use life-saving measures on that child. And I think that that's cruel. So this woman is literally saying she thinks that you should not attempt life-saving measures if the parents say, we don't want to use life-saving measures, as a fact of saying this should be a medical practice, that doctors should be able to decide if one of the parental unit says, I don't want you to use life-saving measures on my child for whatever reason. You can flower it however you want to. But that's at the crux of this. And I think that people need to come to that realization that there are people in this country that fundamentally don't believe that a woman should ever be restricted if she decides, up to the point even of birth, that she should have to be burdened by another human's life. And that's where I think that we have this discussion. And I agree with President Trump, it should be sent back to the states. I personally, if I could wave a magic wand, I would wish the founders would have included life in that perception, but that wasn't really an issue. Like, people weren't aborting their children back when this country was founded in any significant number. And so, because it's not part of our Constitution, and I believe in the Constitution, we have to bring it back to either the states, which is where it's at. But my whole point is that they try and push this entire conversation off to the side, and I think it's disingenuous. But that's why there are people that just radically, fundamentally don't view human life the same way that other people do. But that's why leaving it to the states is how we actually are, like, arbitrate this issue. Now,
I would like just one thing. I went through a very harrowing experience the last couple of months of having my mother alive. And I can honestly say that there were life-saving moments that if I would have just said, oh, I would rather let her just be peaceful, and this is the direction that God decided, instead of having medical step in. I mean, there was a moment that my mom was unresponsive and warm to the touch, and I had her 911 out of a care facility, and she was saved. And so people that want to say these things, I'd like to hear them after they've experienced it. Another point I want to make: if you are undecided or you don't really know and understand, there's a lot of things that I have learned about in this last political cycle. And I want to share something. It was a couple of years ago that Deanne is a Minneapolis resident, a good friend of mine and a fan of this show. We went to the movie called Unplanned. Did you see it, AK?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. It really opened my eyes about the actual business behind Planned Parenthood, which, again, just like I really didn't know about the morally bankrupt Tim Walz, I really didn't know anything about Planned Parenthood. I thought it was actually a facility for women to go to be given medical procedures, advice, and literally a choice. My eyes were completely open to the business model of Planned Parenthood, what they actually do with the body parts, the complete corrosion and bullying of when girls come in, and why they don't want to ultrasound the baby so that the woman cannot see the baby. And literally, again, I wish it was left out of politics. I just think that we need to educate people to get them to understand where it is at, and the fact that this is legal in the state of Minnesota. So
and here's this last piece, and we're going to move on to this next point.
Yep.
Is that as passionate as I am on this issue, I believe that you cannot legislate morality. I believe that you have to convince people's hearts and minds. But that's why, to me, I love this country, is that we have this constitution that says, hey, like, if we want to have like a federal actual rule that all states must follow, we got to amend the Constitution. Now, there's plenty of things that we don't do that, right? There's plenty of laws that are enforced federally that are not amendments to the Constitution. That's a whole other question about, the rights of the states. But I believe that this is where abortion should be, as abhorrent as I believe that this industry is, as terrible as I think the practices are. I have to win hearts and minds. And President Trump did what the pro-life community has asked him to do for 70 or 50 whatever years, right? Sent it back to the states, and that's where it is. And it's just absurd when Kamala Harris says, when Trump is president, he's going to sign a national abortion ban. It's absurd, because that's not where he stands. So have you ever seen someone eating a pet, Bella? Have you ever heard of a American citizen deciding to go and munch on Mittens or Fido?
So again, this was another thing that I need to digest. So when Trump brought up,
no pun intended.
Yeah. So when Trump brought up Ohio, right?
Yep.
And the infiltration of, what was it, 20-some thousand Haitians brought into Ohio, correct?
Yeah. It's even worse than infiltration. This is the U.S. government sending Haitians on purpose to Springfield, Ohio, in such large numbers over the course of like the last 2.5 years.
So I can give this analogy, and maybe I don't know if it'll hit home or make it any more real. Williston, North Dakota was a small town of about, what would you say Williston, North Dakota was around?
Probably like 14,000.
Yeah, 14,000. Very small town America. And when the boom hit back in 2008, I was out there end of 2009 and 2010. It took a small little town that women, children could walk down sidewalks, could go to the grocery stores, could go out for entertainment. It turned it literally into what I used to call the rapist colony, the knuckle dragging rapist colony. I tried to make light of it. Actually, there were beautiful people out there, but what happened to Williston is probably much of what's going on in Ohio. You cannot dump that many people into a community that do not want to assimilate. And it's different from the oil field, but it became a very, very violent, unsafe place to live. So when I heard this, I didn't know what to think. My first inclination was, why is he going down this road? It wasn't until I talked to you, AK, and then I started hearing more stories that this is literally happening in Ohio. And Kamala Harris went on The View back in 2022, I believe, and bragged about signing off on this.
Yeah, so to kind of, again, for those that didn't watch the entire debate, there was this point in which they were talking about immigration. President Trump says, and there's stories of people eating cats and dogs and people's pets, and this is all because of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's failure to secure our border. And again, ABC did this thing where they fact check anything that Trump says. And so David Muir said, our reporters reached out to the city administrator in Springfield, Ohio, and they don't have any evidence that has happened. And so Trump pushed back right away. He goes, maybe the city administrator wants to make his city look good. He's like, but I'm seeing that people are sharing this. And this is the key. This is why Trump is brilliant. You can, like, the people that think that Trump is like just some dum-dum absolutely make me just like it makes me just think that you must not live in reality, right? To imagine that a man such as Donald Trump can get to where he's been, the success that he has experienced in his life, and then he's just like some idiot out there when he captures essences. So him bringing this issue to the forefront, when you consider that days before, hours before leading up to the debate, he was sharing memes that were being made using AI, showing Trump running, holding a dog in one hand, holding a goose in the other hand, running through a street. And it said, like, save the ducks, save the pets, right? That was a meme that then he's able to amplify on a national stage, because it's not about whether or not there's a widespread issue of Haitian refugees and those that are criminal aliens that like snuck across the border that haven't applied for refugee or asylum, which there are a ton of those that are also in this small town of Springfield, Ohio. It's that it's happening to a point of this is what happens when cultures clash. So when you said, Bella, you have Williston and you just get this huge flood of American citizens that are crashing into a town. They don't have the infrastructure. They have different cultural beliefs. Even within the United States, we have different cultural beliefs, right? But you just get this massive flood of people that are not part of that community or culture, and they start doing things that are like abhorrent to the current community and culture. And that's the whole point, right? Trump's point isn't whether or not how many cats or dogs have literally been killed, which there probably have been some, okay? But the point is, this is what happens when you allow your border to fail, when you have a terrible program that we targeted these handful of states and countries and said, we can let these people come in willy-nilly. We're going to give them vouchers. But here's what I wanted to show. This is what's been on screen this entire time, okay? It shows that there's a police audio of a confirmed Haitian goose hunter in Ohio. So basically, again, I would love to play the audio. It's not working, but this is being reported by the Federalist. You can go and take a look at the story yourself. But the guy calls in, non-emergency, says, I'm on my way to work, or I have to go to orientation or something. And I see what I believe are 4 Haitian migrants that are carrying geese in their hands with the geese's heads are chopped off. I just want to report that this is happening. And yes, it is. There's been a bunch of videos being shared for sure. And like, Bella, you've probably had to stop before when you're driving and you watch all the Canadian geese cross, right?
Right.
Yeah. So imagine that happened, but you're Haitian and you're like, why are no one eating these delicious birds? So they go and they say, I'm going to capture the birds. They're really stupid. They're fat because people feed them. I bet these birds are delicious, because believe it or not, in most of the world, they like to eat geese. Now I know you would say, yeah, we like to eat geese too. I grew up in North Dakota and Devil's Lake, And every fall, during football season, we go out and there'd be a lot of duck hunting going on, goose hunting going on. But that's in season. It's not the same way. And plus there's bans on hunting during certain seasons, right? Migratory birds, because it can mess up our entire ecosystem. But that's not the point. The point is Donald Trump is just pointing out the very obvious, that this is the failure of a failed border policy, that these issues were not around when President Trump was president. And so that's why I think it's genius the way that he brought this up, because now everyone's talking about it on TikTok today. When I was on TikTok, for those of you who don't know, I have 130,000 followers on TikTok. People are non-political are remixing when Donald Trump is like, they're eating cats and dogs, they're eating our pets, and people are remixing it. And that's the genius of President Trump.
But here's the thing, as I'm listening to this, where is the rage with all of these murders, horrific murders of women and children from all of these? I mean, the list of women and children and how they're brutalized, where's the uproar? But then all of a sudden we mention Ohio and geese and cats, and it's like, oh my God, what are you talking about? That's not happening. And the moderator says, well, I called the local authorities. No, this wasn't happening. Where isn't it? Are you serious? I mean, but again, we're talking about, I used to hear the line, what's right is wrong, what's wrong is right. What would they like us to believe? What would they not like us to believe? I fully believe that this was staged to just simply elevate Kamala, give her an opportunity to try and look presidential, slam Trump, try and trigger him, get him mad so that she can have sound bites of how unstable and unbalanced and hinged that he is. I still believe what I have said in the past is that if you were undecided and you wanted to hear policy and answers, you did not get that. When I talked to you, AK, he dropped some very important points for us to ingest and start to pay attention, because yes, Trump is genius. And the longer that time plays out, I do believe that people are, I was in Trader Joe's on my way in here and brought it up, and, people are not impressed with that debate. It was very, very poor behavior on Kamala's point, her face, just basically her bloviated personality. I wanted to bring this up because it was interesting. I'm not going to quote who was talking about it. Kamala's behavior towards the press now as she's running, if the press does not push back on her, the same behavior will be present if she wins the election. So the avoidance of answering questions, the avoidance of holding press conferences and interviews. AK, I want your thoughts on it, because the minute that I heard that, I thought, again, this very dangerous slope that we're on in this country right now, where whether or not you believe Biden was pulled because of the dementia, Biden was pulled because they knew he was losing. They literally insert Kamala and then try and do the same basement approach. But if they get away with this, and then now she can truly be the emperor behind the curtain that never has to talk, never has to speak, never has to answer for anything, never even has to tell us what the hell she's going to do, they'll just do it.
Yeah. So to your point, though, I want to say that it is so interesting that what really got people fired up was talking about people's pets being killed and eaten by Haitian migrants, whether they're criminal aliens or refugees or asylum seekers, whatever. And I actually tweeted out, I'm like, I tweeted out this funny kind of post that's like, at least people are talking about this. I just feel torn that people clearly care more about pets and local wildlife being killed than human beings being killed, and more important than them supporting, again, third trimester abortions. And so I posted this, like, there's like the depressed Wojak is what they call it, where it's like the guy whose eyes are completely blackened out. And it's just like, give me a minute, I'll get over it. But to the point about Kamala and the press, yeah, they want her to play ball, but the problem is that she realizes, and I think the campaign strategy is to only present one narrative of Kamala Harris, and that is Kamala is the change candidate. That's what they're trying to make her, the change candidate. She's not. She's the incumbency. She represents the current status quo, but they are doing everything in their power, her administration and her campaign, to make her the change candidate. Donald Trump is clearly the change candidate. He is a change from the current status quo. And so they're having this collision point where media is like, we need to be able to like sell this in a way that is believable to our audience, and we can't sell them the basement strategy because at least Joe Biden had 8 years as vice president that we can go through his body of work, and he was a senator before that for like 40 years and a congressman before that. So we can go to Joe Biden deep cuts and we know who he is. So the basement strategy is actually more effective. Kamala Harris, no, because the only thing that she's been put in charge of in her time as vice president was the border. Literally, that's the only thing, her only official responsibility or duty, I believe, and you can fact check me and tell me if I'm wrong, has been the border, and they can't use that. So yeah, the media is becoming frustrated to the point that I've said this before. This is my 10,000 foot view take of this, is that they're trying to stop the down ticket bleeding. They really don't think that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz can win. They want to win, but they just know that there is such a high Herculean hill to be able to climb and lift that the best they can do is just try and pretend and present this, this view of who Kamala Harris is. Like, did you see during this debate, Bella, when Kamala Harris had the audacity to say that Trump was friendly with Xi Jinping, saying that the Biden administration were the tough on China administration between the two? Like, how absurd and insane is that premise?
Let me ask you, since we're totally off script, because we were gonna be playing the debate
audio, and the audio. Yeah. It's not gonna happen.
Anybody listening tonight, we're
around,
we're totally this is right off the cuff. So this is what's really been bothering me. By the way, we have 40 some comments so far on the show. I don't know if you want to show any of those comments, but I really want to understand these polling numbers that they're giving and shed a little light on it, because, prior to the debate, she was behind Clinton in 2016. She was behind where Biden was in 2020. So how can they say that this is such a tight race when we do have, and I know that I said earlier, they're just relieved that it's not Biden, but we are a smart country. We have woken up. I am seeing it and hearing it when I'm out on the street talking to people. So how in God's name can they say that this is such a tight race when Biden was still there? He was he was several points ahead in swing states. We were looking at what looked like a pretty strong victory. I know that you've said this is for Trump to lose, but explain to me then why they are saying this is so tight and that she has risen above in several states in this race.
Yeah, well, there's really two things going on. The reason it's close is because all political races are going to be relatively close. How you win is moving small groups of people from one pile to the next. And Andrew Langer is a guy that I heard first say that, so I want to attribute to him where I heard it. But that's what winning politics is. For the most part, Republicans are set up and they're going to vote Republican. Democrats are set up, they're going to vote Democrat. Your independents, for the most part, are usually going to go in phases. but they mostly have a tendency, independents will either mostly vote Republican, and every once in a blue moon they'll vote Democrat, or the opposite. They always vote Democrat every once in a blue moon. And so it's really this very small corridor of people that you're actually trying to win. So that's why it's going to be close, really, no matter what, unless you have someone that does something that's so catastrophic that you just lose all their support, which Biden was doing. Biden was losing the support of, again, independents that mostly vote Democrat. He was losing them in such large numbers that there would just be no way. And if the trend continued, you would have a President Trump, you would have probably a 100-seat majority in the House, and you'd probably have like a 10-seat majority in the Senate. That's how bad things are looking. And so in order to stem that, they had to put Kamala in, because at least Kamala is not going around like Biden did yesterday and putting on a MAGA hat. Did you see that? Did you see that video?
What happened?
Biden was at an event yesterday, and it was like kind of like a town hall-ish, stop where he's like talking to people. And there was a guy sitting there, an older white guy, and he had a MAGA hat on. And Biden, he was like, "Oh, I see you got a hat there." And he was like, "Do you even know where you are today?" That's what the one older gentleman said to Biden. Biden's like, "Yeah, I think I know where I'm at today." And he goes, "Oh," and he goes, "Will you sign my hat?" And he goes, "Sure, I'll sign your hat." So the guy takes off his MAGA hat, hands it to Biden. Biden puts the hat on his head while he's already wearing another hat, and everyone's like, "Put it on, put it on." And it's absurd. So literally Biden put on a MAGA hat after being antagonized by a bunch of local folks in a town. And then they tried to spin it, and like Karine Jean-Pierre came out and said, "Oh, that was a show of unity because it's 9/11." But they released the full, you can go watch the video right now, and I wish I could get our audio to work because we'd watch it. It's hilarious. Where the guy's antagonizing Biden, and the dude put a freaking MAGA hat on his head. And I know some people don't like the fact that I say MAGA. They want to say MAGA, but I'm a data guy, not a data guy. It's just how I pronunciate my A's. But that's why, right? So going back to why Kamala is close, because she's not doing that, okay? Kamala's never going to put on a MAGA hat. Never happening. Biden did yesterday.
By the way, what are you doing differently from just last week? Because last week we were able to play all this stuff.
Oh, so last week we were able to play it, but if you remember, my video was super laggy. And so I have a bunch of tabs pulled up. I have a second monitor set up. So everything is kind of sized. You see how this story is all sized here all perfectly. So I pre-did all of that, and then I have the video set up. It's just that last week we literally downloaded the whole video, and then I basically went through. So I uploaded the video, and then we went and we stopped and started. That's why the audio is working. Right now, we're sharing basically the screen, and I'm trying to play the audio through that share. And so that's why the audio is not working. And just for fun, we'll try and do it one more time, and you tell me if you can hear it.
How long does it take to upload it?
Upload it?
Yeah.
It's downloading. It's the problem. I have to rip it, which is like a whole thing. So in order for me to be able to rip it, I have to literally watch the entire debate or let it play while my thing is screen recording. It's an hour and 44 minutes. And so, again, downloading it and screen ripping it.
If you have two screens up, can't you just play it on your other computer and we can hear it?
That's why that's what I'm doing. That's literally what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. It's just, it's not playing. Here,
Christopher guy goes, "Easy, girl. Happens to all of us. Still an amazing show." Has anybody figured out yet? I'm kind of like this perfectionist that's technically retarded. So I am no one to sit here and get on AK's ass about this technology, because left to my own devices, I am technically retarded.
You know what? I think I actually might have figured this out. Once you said that, I was like, here, let me look here. It says to share audio, share a tab or screen instead. So to share audio, I have to share a tab or screen. So I have to open up Chrome And then you know what? I actually might be able to do this still. Let's
You can do it. You can do it.
let's find out. Let's
Come on,
find out.
AK.
I mean, at this point, we're so far in the stream. I mean, we actually I have a few different points that I could bring up
Well,
that are
try it
still
real
on
quick.
my list.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
try
yeah.
it real quick, and then we'll go to our backup plan.
But yeah, so as I'm getting ready to try this and pull this up, basically, you know, what this ultimately comes down to is that I don't think that Biden, I should say in this case Kamala, I think that they know they're not going to win. Okay, they know, they literally know that they're not going to win, and they're fine with that as long as they can stem the down the ticket bleeding. And I think that that's in one sense why they're willing to do these very unorthodox campaign things is because they know that the likelihood of them capturing lightning in a bottle is almost impossible. All right, so we are going to try this. I mean, first we're going to see if this will actually like play. But you know, we're going to attempt this. We are going to see here.
You can do it. You can do it. I have faith.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful.
Oh,
Did you hear anything?
yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay. Well, hey, now we figured that one out. I mean, this is episode 6. You know, BT Dubs, and so yeah. Now it doesn't look
So let's get
as
started.
good as I wanted.
I want to begin tonight with the issue that
I'm going to go to basically, and we'll see if this even can load while it's doing this. But I'm basically going to try and go to the fourth point that I wanted to bring up. And Bella, when you hear both Kamala and the media talk about the very fine people, how does that make you feel?
What do you mean, the very fine people?
The very fine people hoax? Do you know about the very fine people hoax?
I guess I do not.
So when Biden announced his candidacy, he literally said the reason that he decided to run for president against Trump was because he saw that after the Charlottesville rally, in which one of these crazy, you know, white nationalist, white supremacist dudes ran over a handful of protesters, and one woman died. That after that, the media was hitting Trump, right? And they say that he claimed to say there were very fine people on both sides. Okay. And so Biden said that that's why he ran, is because he thought that it was horrifying that a U.S. president would call the KKK and white nationalists very fine people. To which everyone like me said, "What are you talking about? I watched the press conference." He said, "And I'm not talking about the white supremacists and KKK. I disavow them totally." But he said there were other people that were trying to tear down the statue that believed that that was an attack on the heritage. And then he's like, those are the very fine people. So, but Kamala brought it up again last night. She brought up the very fine people hoax. And she used it in her explanation that she believes that Trump is a racist. So I'm just curious, like, if that's not even on your radar, you know, what do you think when they try and use that against Trump to say that he's a racist dude?
I cannot think of a more.
Okay, we can hear the audio. Here's the thing. You were not a big Trump supporter. And whenever in the beginning, and whenever people bring up these, when people bring up these sound bites, and this is what makes me crazy, is that, and I always stand my ground when somebody says something to me and it's like, well, first of all, you got to fact check it, and you got to use a little bit of common sense. And nowhere in the world would Trump say that KKK are good people. I mean, it's just and I also want to say that it wasn't until Trump ran in 16 and in 20 did the media start to turn into just, I mean, all they are is, and we all know this, they're the Democrat socialist media, and they get away with saying whatever the hell they want to say. But I will say on my ground, American people were a hell of a lot smarter, and that's why there was, I can't find anybody that enjoyed the debate that can vote for Kamala. And I just think that the further that this thing plays out, people are going to become more and more disenfranchised. I think the polls will start to move back towards in favor of Trump. So what are you going to play for us next?
All right, I'm actually going to show you her lies about the very fine people. So we'll watch this. It's about 45 seconds long, if it plays. Because this is the other thing is that, now that we can get the audio play, all of a sudden spinning, like it doesn't want to just play.
Maybe you need to do what I used to do in North Dakota. I'd sit outside of a hotel room and hijack like real good high-speed internet. Do you not have good internet?
I pay for 750 megabytes of download speed of high-speed internet.
I would need to know if that's good. Christopher guy, is that good internet speed? I got to go to our listening audience because I don't know. I just know.
And what's funny is that, again, when we started the show, it was playing because it was all like everything was queued up. It's just that I was
you have
playing
too many tabs open.
No. So I've realized what happened. I was trying to share. I was trying to share tabs on Microsoft Edge versus sharing tabs on Google Chrome. I'm using Google Chrome and using Microsoft Edge because I'm actually logged into two different versions of our Streamlabs, but that's neither here nor there. It's not wanting to play. So there's that. So I'm going to try and redo it, and we'll see.
The President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville.
Well, as this is loading, okay, she said that police officers died on January 6th. That is 100% provably false. Brian Sicknick died from a non-injury related, like he had a stroke or something like that, right? He did not die because of injuries. Initially, they reported that like he was hit with fire extinguisher and like maybe it caused some like internal bleeding in his head. Turned out to be 100% false. I've made multiple videos about this. This is, again, one of these lies that is perpetuated. That, again, ABC, did they fact check that and say, well, that's not true?
We can't. I mean, here's the thing. When anybody ever talks about the regular media, it's like we don't have journalism. We don't have reporting. All we have is sensationalizing lies and driving their narrative. Listen, January 6th was also staged to make MAGA people look violent and to build their story of this insurrection. Larvita McCarfor, who was one of the business owners that was attacked by Attorney Ellison and Walz for keeping her business open so she could feed her children. She's a single mother. She was there listening to Trump's speech on January 6th. She called me later on that day after watching what had unfolded, and she was livid because she said Trump wasn't even done with his speech before the doors were broken into and all that played out. Okay. This is why I say this, these people have become dangerous beyond, and the lies have gotten to the point where we can't even have a presidential debate with any fairness or balance. It was a complete joke. She was allowed to stand up there, say whatever the hell she wanted to, not answer the question, smirk, roll her eyes with the little earbuds, which I fully believe she was fed what to say because she is not smart enough, sharp enough, she's just not any of the things that she brought forth that day. I fully believe you can, and I know you're agreeing with me, AK, because she's not sharp enough to have conducted and turned around with the turnaround comments that she had to Trump, unless they were being fed to her in those earbuds.
Yeah.
that
Okay.
are
So
in her ears.
I actually disagree with you on this. Like, and I disagree with you because I think you're falling for a trap. And here's the trap.
No, it's
Kamala
my
Harris-
opinion.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
straight up my opinion.
Yeah, I know it's your opinion, but I'm saying just hear me out about why I think this is a trap. The idea that Kamala Harris is this incompetent boob is actually very, very problematic. I think Kamala Harris is a dyed-in-the-wool Marxist who knows exactly what she's doing. The problem is that she's just not likable. Her character is poor. She's not charismatic, but she is smart. When you think about that, her whole, unburdened by what has been, right? That's the entire premise of that statement, that saying, is a way to embed Marxism into a memified society. Like Kamala Harris 100% knows what she's doing. 100%. And so I personally, there's a report that just came out before we went live saying that the campaign was given the questions beforehand, and the reports were beforehand that Kamala Harris was like over prepared for this. Like she was going to get all of her zingers in and all that. She was a prosecutor, even though, yes, she slept with Mayor Willie Brown. She still was a prosecutor in San Francisco County. And she did convict a lot of people. She actually terrifyingly was very authoritarian at certain points in her career, because all she really cares about power as a Marxist. People are completely dispensable to Kamala Harris. But the only reason I say that, I know it's your opinion, and I could be wrong, that she is this stupid moron and she's only propped up because they picked her to be their Manchurian candidate. I'm not saying that that's not possible. It could be possible. I just go ahead.
Okay, so
I just don't think that it is.
No, I often wondered until it was so blatantly obvious about Biden of his state of mental acuity.
That's fair.
Do we remember in 2016 when they tried painting Hillary as the near morbidly in decline old lady? Do you remember when she tripped into the black?
And she hit her head.
Yeah. And so the story was, she wasn't even going to be competent or capable or possibly even alive for the debate. And then all of a sudden she gets to the debate and super, energized bunny shows up. But the thing is, Hilda Beast is practically likable compared to Kamala Harris. And that's why I think that, I don't know, the further we get along, but it just makes me remember that, they can portray a certain image to make us believe that she is incompetent. And then all of a sudden the real Kamala shows up at the debate.
I want to see if I can play the end of this clip here, because this is the good part. I like how, this whole time I thought it was buffering, and I pressed play and now it's still buffering. So I guess I don't know. It played the officers dying.
There was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate.
Where were the tiki
And
torches?
what did the president then at the time say?
In Charlottesville.
There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by.
All right. So the reason I wanted to show that is she put together three big lies. One, that officers died as a result of January 6th, not true. It's been provably, medical examiner saying Brian Sicknick did not die from that. The other officers that took their lives, suicide, is unfortunately prevalent among law enforcement in this country. But I can tell you what, it's not because of January 6th. It's, I don't know, because an entire political party supported defund the police and saying that police officers in this country are systemically racist, especially if you are a white police officer and you even look the wrong way at a non-white person. You are therefore a virulent racist, and that you are only perpetuating racial stereotypes, that you're a bad person. I think that is part of it. I think the other part is allowing the summer of love that allowed all of these criminals to run around the country, burning cities to the ground. Obviously, Minneapolis, we had the same exact thing, seeing morale so low that these officers are taking their lives. So that's the truth. So that's that lie. It pisses me off to no end. The J6 police officers died, garbage nonsense. Absolutely absurd. Second thing is the very fine people on both sides. The reason I wanted to bring that up is because this one has already been like thoroughly debunked by even Snopes. And if you look on the screen, okay, no, Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. That's right, he did not. And specifically, they show the video where he's like, there's very fine people. And then they ask him after that. They're like, are you saying that the neo-Nazis and KKK members are very fine people? And he goes, absolutely not. I condemn them totally. I'm talking about the people that wanted to keep the statue up, that wanted to protect their heritage. And then he goes in and says, did George Washington own slaves? He did. Should we tear down his statues? Did Thomas Jefferson own slaves? He did. Should we tear down his statues? It was actually a really, really awesome press conference, but that's all they ripped from this, is that he called neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. But again, Snopes, which they are not friends to Republicans, 100% debunking that. And then the third thing is that the Proud Boys are a militia and that Trump told them to stand by and stand back, right? Absurd. Do you know, I know more Proud Boys, and I don't know that many, that are actually not white. I know a bunch that are black. I know a bunch of black Proud Boys from across this nation.
Will you explain to our listeners who don't know and understand what is a Proud Boy?
Yeah, I mean, it's super simple. It initially started off as, an antithesis to these Antifa far leftists that were going around smashing up people's buildings, disrupting peaceful, protests. So let's say that, you're against Obamacare, right? And so you decide that you were going to go out and you wanted to protest Obamacare. Antifa would show up with batons and clubs and they would beat people. And so the Proud Boys were formed to say, hey, we're not going to just allow you to terrorize those of us on the right that believe what we believe. So we're going to show up and we are going to meet force with force. That's what the Proud Boys are and have been. They're not a militia. They're not there to instill President Trump's vision of America. They're not, they try and paint them as though they're some type of like Gestapo or secret police or something. It's literally not. It's just, it's patriots on the right that actually want to fight kinetically with those on the left when it comes to blows. Now, I don't like that perspective. I'm more of like a nonviolent civil disobedience guy. But I can understand, like, you're tired of seeing these far left Antifa going around and beating people with clubs. Quite literally, that's what Antifa does. Like, their whole thing of like punch a Nazi. Understand, they don't mean actual Nazis. They mean those that they've deemed to be Nazis, which if you are right of center, guess what? You're a Nazi. According to these Antifa folks, right? You're a fascist. And so that's why Proud Boys were like, we're not going to allow this to happen. Now, I like the fact that they go out there and they protect, but they do want to instigate kinetic force with kinetic force. And that's the part that's just not my thing. But again, the Proud Boys that I know, almost all of them that I know, most of them are non-white. And secondly, they love this country. And thirdly, they're not going out and purposely trying to like attack like normal Democrats. They're specifically going to events that they know Antifa is going to be at, because Antifa is there to cause disruption and terror. Like, honestly, they're there to terrorize peaceful people on the right that want to stand up and protest their voice. So the antithesis would be, imagine if Proud Boys went around to any time there was like, let's say like a pro, like Hamas, well, maybe that's a little bit disingenuous, but a pro Gaza side protest. And they just went around and they just started beating them, right? Think about what the news would say, right? But that's literally what Antifa does. Antifa would go to like a pro-life march and they would start beating these people. And, they're like, Antifa is just an idea. It's not a real organization. So again, I just wanted to string together that these three lies all came out of Kamala's mouth, her utterance, and she didn't get fact checked. on a single one of those points that she brought up. Antifa is definitely not Antifa. Proud Boys are not a militia. Like, even if you look at their definition, people call them all types of things, but a militia they are not. Again, no officers died on January 6th because of J6 rioters, which they call insurrectionists, which is, again, not even correct. And like I said, the very fine people on both sides, hoax. Kamala just was able to throw all that out there and no fact checks, no nothing. And I think that should be eye-opening to people. Anyone that watches back the stream with even our technical difficulties we've had, hopefully you glean those things, that this was not just once. This is like all in one succession. But she lied over 25 times. There's a report out by the Federalist that actually breaks down each of these lies that she was out there pushing. And I'm going to pull that up so people can see that. But I mean, like, yeah, she's literally out there just spewing just lies after lies after lies.
No, that's and AK, you were running up. We only have about 5 more minutes, and then I know you got to take off for work. Anybody in our listening audience that's sitting in the chat room, anybody have something that they would like us to add to the show? AK, are you looking through some of the comments? Because we promised that we're going to.
Yeah. It looks like Christopher Guy, he's been fantastic. He's been dropping comments all night. We super appreciate that. Also, Mark looks like Prizibsky. I don't know. Even though I'm from North Dakota, and that sounds probably like it's either Polish or Finnish or Swedish. Who knows? I can't say your name, but he's been dropping comments as well. A lot of them are just kind of like comments on what we're saying, so they're out of context. Like, one of them, 5 out of 6 isn't bad. Yes, I can hear it. I don't know exactly what that means, but we thank you for your comments. In general, here we got one. Melissa Roberts, hello, AK, you rock. Hello, Melissa, you rock. You are an amazing patriot. For those of you that don't know, the amazing Melissa Roberts, her and her husband Shannon live up in the northern Minnesota in the Iron Range, Grand Rapids area. They are amazing patriots.
So I promise, AK, we're going to get this technology ironed out for next show. I keep threatening that we're going to have more and more humor. So I'm going to figure out a way to insert more humor throughout the show as well, because that is one of my commitments, is to bring it back to kind of the roots of what it was. Obviously, I can't bring back the oil field humor, but I certainly can bring in the laughter, because that's what I love to do. And that's what, one of my girlfriends said that the McDonald's people kind of cringe as they see me pulling into the parking lot. Was it you and Jay that was talking about that every time you call me, I'm sitting in the ordering? You're getting
a Diet Coke at McDonald's or whatever. Yeah. That's. I think if you ever were, let's say you fell and you hurt your leg and you needed for some reason a blood transfusion, they would have to get someone else that drank a steady diet of Diet Coke, because wow, you drink a lot of Diet Coke.
Well, I will say this: they've become friends of mine, the 2 McDonald's here in Maple Grove, but they've also created kind of a window into what's really going on with everyday Americans that are just trying to get up, go out about their day, do their job, support their family, bring groceries home, pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we're all feeling it. I talked to you offline about my personal situation. It's hard out there, and people need to understand. And that's why when anybody throws any of this personality or ethical or all of this, I explain to people, I had a conversation with someone about, they wanted someone that really was morally and ethically and a good Christian and all these things, that they had this laundry list. And I said, it takes a lot of guts and a big personality to run and to be in politics. And then you add to it, like, you and I, and so many people have said, Trump doesn't have to do this. He doesn't have to be fighting for this country. But if it comes down to your decision, excuse me, you have to look at policy. And if you don't know and understand the policy of Kamala Harris, you can answer this question. Is your life any better from the last 3.5 years, from 16 to 2020? Are you thriving? How is your bank account, your 401k? Are you going on vacations? Are you optimistic about the future? Are you able to buy your house? Are you able to pay the rent and buy the groceries? You know, the credit card debt is soaring in this country because people are resorting to credit cards to buy groceries. You know, we've got a little bit of a reprieve for gas at the pump, but, you know, look at where gas was at. Look at where the optimism is in this country. And we don't have optimism. We're not excited about where our future is moving forward. We're all experiencing the same thing when we go into the grocery store. As a matter of fact, my good friend Wilson, as I call him, Wilson called me today. I got in really late last night. I want to give a shout out to my instructor at the barn. I absolutely love going to the barn and riding my horse, Hattie, and she is doing amazing. And last night I got in really late. And so I just made scrambled eggs and I used up the whole carton of eggs. And so Wilson calls me this morning. He paid like $3.89 for a dozen of eggs. My Diet Coke from McDonald's forever was $1. For the first time ever, I paid $2.03 for one Diet Coke at McDonald's. And there was a post by Jennifer Lawlier. She is another fan of the show at Happy Valley Ranch out in the western suburbs. And she had posted the analogy of the different fast foods and how much the prices have inflated. And my response was, it's only going to get worse if we don't stop them in November. And if you think that prices are high now, just wait until Kamala takes over the regime in November and she starts trying to do the price fixing of food, goods, and services, much like what Nixon tried and failed, which, you know, I got to say, if Carter brought Reagan, Biden and Kamala, we've got to bring in Trump. And I want to make this point because I've had this conversation. When that bullet grazed Donald J. Trump's ear, my first thing out of my mouth was that it was a divine intervention. If you believe that this is a fight between good and evil, it is a fight between good and evil. They have elevated their skills to let us believe that they can insert an individual and instead of the basement technique, just avoid, wear earbuds and be on the phone so that she doesn't have to say or do anything to be able to win this election. I don't agree that they think that they're going to lose, but that's what makes this show great. We have our opinions and our beliefs. But I do believe this, that God still has his hand in this country. I believe that Donald Trump is somewhat of a divine intervention. It was proven when he was spared his life during that attempt. And I believe that that was also an inside job. I believe that there is an inside attempt every step of the way to stop the unstoppable Donald J. Trump. And so we have to get out and do our part. I said it at my last stop today. We have to get out and do our part to get people to understand this is about two very far different policies. Look at what your life was like from 16 to 2020 and from 2020 to current. And then we have to fight, baby, fight, and we got to get out and vote. AK, final thoughts, and then I'll wrap out.
Yeah, so I'm always a person of action. It's one thing to sit and complain on the internet about how we feel about politics and policy, but I always encourage every single person to take the step of actually doing something about it. Now, the idea that any one individual can change the entire nation, that's absurd. But I believe that if more people at the grassroots got involved and started to actually do the work to care about their local politics, our country would change within like literally 5 years. If every American that was fed up said, I'm going to at least spend 5 hours a week trying to help actually shape my government to be reflective of who I am, all of our country would change overnight. So to that end, I want people that want to actually help President Trump turn the state red, turn Minnesota red, or the state that you're living in. If you're not watching this from Minnesota, go to TrumpForce47.com, get signed up. That is the actual activist activation website and an app that you will be connected. A Trump team captain will reach out to you, get you login so you can get out and actually turn out the vote, because that's what we need to have happen, because we're going to make this thing too big to rig. The second thing is go to protectthevote.com. That's going to be the election day operations. The Trump administration, along with the RNC and your state's Republican Party, and here in Minnesota, the Republican Party in Minnesota, we are trying to recruit at least 5,000 people across the state to show up on election day to precincts to actually be a precinct poll challenger, poll watcher. Now, that's on top of those that have already signed up to be an election judge, but that window is kind of closed here in Minnesota because of how close we are to the election. But we want people to do that. So those are 2 action items. Now, before we close, I'm going to try one last time. This is the closing statement from Trump. I think it was probably the best part. If you watch anything, go back and just watch the last basically like 2.5, 3 minutes of Trump's speech, and we'll see if it plays. Fingers crossed, Bella.
By saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC.
That, to me, that's all you need, right? All of the platitudes, everything that Kamala represents, none of it matters, because if she cared, she would have done something about it. She doesn't care. She's lying to the American people. And this is why I said this is a heavy lift. This is why I think they're not going to do it. But next week, we're also going to be streaming on Thursday, because I committed to going up to St. Cloud, to Senate District 14, to that basic political organizing unit. The local Republicans, they're having a meeting, and I do that. I go across the state. If anyone watching the stream, they want to have Bella and I come out, I'm sure we could figure out a time to come out there. If Bella can't join me, that's fine. I love to go around and talk to folks.
Hey, what did I just say to you earlier?
I know you said you want to do it. Yeah, you want to get out. I know.
No, don't cut me out of the picture. Oh, Bella don't want to come.
Well, Bella,
that was, and you know what?
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I realized at the debate party the other night, and a lot of people just don't know much about my personal story. It's been a rough 2 years, and I'm just going to leave it at that. spending time with my mom and all of that. And it was a real honor, though, to have really well-connected people that I hadn't seen in a really long time come up and tell me and ask about this podcast. It means a lot that Christopher Guy, who literally has been listening to the show since I used to pull up in my pickup truck, literally pirating internet off of hotel rooms, sitting in a subway parking lot, fielding roughnecks, whether they were trying to hit on me or just ask me what the hell some white chick was doing in the middle of Williston, North Dakota, all by herself. I think I was probably the only white chick in Williston, North Dakota during the oil boom. But anyways, it's an honor that we have such a great listening audience that has stuck with for a very long time, has stuck with me as I was on and off the air trying to find a good co-host. And AK, you're wonderful. I'm so glad I got to meet you in person. I'm so glad, as much as I want all these things to be fixed, we're a work in progress. Why? Because we work. We have day jobs. We don't just sit around and have abundant of time to put this together. So AK, thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, thank you. And lastly, again, make sure that you like this, share, subscribe wherever you're watching this, whether you're watching this on YouTube, on Rumble. Make sure that you let people know that you like the show, and we'll see you next week on Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time.
All right. And I just want to say, Mark, no, I don't want a Fresca, but thank you. Diet Coke is just Diet Coke from McDonald's, and Christopher, shit happens. Yes. Anyways. All right. Get out and be Bella tomorrow. Get out and be AK tomorrow. Talk to people, get people fired up, get people listening, get people inspired to vote in November, because you know what? One person can make a difference. Everybody can make a difference. You just got to get out and fight, baby, fight. With that, I'm going to say good night. God bless America, and ciao for now.
Are you fired up? Then take action. Copy the link to this episode and text it to one friend who needs to hear it. Support us where you found us by liking and subscribing for future content. This is a grassroots production supported by listeners like you.